Right. Okay, so it's starting. Look at that. First try? Are you freaking kidding me? Ah, it's beautiful. Thanks for dropping by. This is Let's Dev with Greg. Today we're going to talk about two things. Uh, the gravity lifts and the teleporters. Now these are two relatively minor things, and let's just jump in and show you how they work. These are two relatively minor, small features that we can use to make a lot of interesting level design in the future. So you can kind of see how they work here. You've got normal jumping, but when we're over a gravity field or a lift and you jump, we add jump force to our normal jump, so we go higher, right? You could see, I'm sure you could think of many cool level design uses for something like that. We could also in the future modify this gravity field. So maybe there's like an in-air gravity field that you have to activate, or maybe there's something that pushes you forward instead of up, stuff like that. Or just there's modifications of all these things that we can do to make things more interesting, right? And then there's the teleporter, which is pretty simple. It just teleports you from one teleporter to another. Now, the reason I wanted to dedicate a small episode to these two things is they're kind of lacking something. They're lacking oomph, like juice, feel, game feel. We have it with our teleporter. Our gravity field is a little bit better. It kind of, we've got a nice little animation on our guy. He's kind of like shooting out of the gravity field, but there's a problem. And the problem is, it's not, if I were a player, it's not immediately evident what this thing does. It's pointing upwards. I can see it has something to do with upwards, but nothing changes when I'm walking over it, when I'm in its active range, right? I'm right here, right? I'm standing right next to it and I'm jumping and nothing's happening. And now I'm standing in it and all of a sudden I'm jumping more. Now, you could argue that intuitively some players might put that together, but I feel like there's more we can do there. And so what I've got for this is this particle system. And you can see it down here. Now what I'd like to do is, while we're standing over the gravity lift, I want this particle system to be active. And when we exit, I want it to go away, or to deactivate. Now, there's a couple different ways we could go about doing this. But basically, in our gravity lift, I haven't actually done any of the code for this yet, so we'll just jump right into that. So, all right, let's see. What we're going to do here is, when we enter, if it's what this is saying is, when this comes into a collision with a collider, if it's the player, then we're going to do a couple things. And now we're going to do a couple more things. In that, we're going to look for this .get component in children, and it'll be particle system. And then this .get component in children enable emission. Let's see. I'm still learning myself, so enable emit, the rate of emit enable emission. Okay, equals true. And then when we leave it, it'll be false. Now I need to do some syntax here so that this if statement will work. Okay. And that needs to be false. So what we've just said is uh, this dot get component. Okay, so we're gonna find the component in the child of this. We're gonna find the component of particle system in the child of whatever this is attached to, which is our gravity lift. So this is the child of the gravity lift, the particle system. We're gonna find the component, this right here. So now the code knows this is what we're looking for. We're going to say, okay, this boolean of are we going to be enabling the emission of particles when we enter this, we're going to say yes, and when we exit, it's going to say no. So um, let's see if that, and then you know what, when we need to set it in start, let's make a start. And then we need to set that to false because we don't want it to play. We don't want it to play in the start. So let's just see what that does. Right. Okay. So it's starting. Look at that. First try. Are you freaking kidding me? Ah, it's beautiful. So now you can see. All right. Like this makes a little bit more sense now in the player's mind that like this is gonna do something, right? Before, who knows what it was, but now at least there's some indication that this is a thing that you can interact with in the world. And again, because the particles are moving up, it kind of implies that this is going to do something that's going to potentially move you upward, you know? And then it does. So, all right, that one, I'm surprised that went so well because I'm not a coder and there might have been a better way to do that, but that's the way we did it and it works. And we're going to move on. Excellent. So now let's move on to the teleporter. The teleporter feels even worse than the gravity field or did because you know the camera's moving. We have an animation that's kind of blocked by the teleporter itself. Um, it just doesn't feel, I don't know, visceral. So apply that prefab change. Let's look at the teleporter, right? So we have our teleporter script, which is on the teleporter, and it needs an exit, right? So we have to define the exit teleporter as the location. Now, the cool thing about the way this is set up is it doesn't even need to teleport to another teleporter. This is just a transform. We could have like basically a one-way teleporter teleport you, to like let's say, we're kind of trapped in this box right here, right? But let's say, I don't know, in the scenario of there's a bunch of enemies in this room, right? And we have to kill all the enemies before our one-way teleporter spawns. And then that spawns, we go into that teleporter and it teleports us to the next room, right? There's no way to get back to the other room in that case. But because it's teleporting us to a place that doesn't have a teleporter there, right? So, dual functionality with these, but back to the topic at hand, it doesn't feel good. And it's got to feel good if we want to teleport to things. So, I've actually done a little bit of prep work for this and applied a vignette and chromatic aberration shader, which is a shader that you can find in the standard assets. So just for an idea of how this looks, you turn it on, it's applied to your camera. You can do some cool things like vignette the screen. With a lot of horror games use this, like a flashlight mechanic, or kind of dark, if I don't know, stuff like that. You can blur the corners, and then you can apply chromatic aberration. And chromatic aberration has got this very cool visual effect that kind of feels like, like it's taking the image and kind of warping it. Now, we don't want any of that right now, but now that I've got this turned on, I've done some stuff in the code, and you'll see it'll make the teleport feel a lot different. Kind of applies this chromatic aberration setting over time, and reduces it over time. And so it just, when you combine this with uh, a cool sound effect or something like that, uh, you know, it just kind of feels like because you're teleporting, you're like warping through space time, so it wants to feel something cool. So now I think we've made like those, just even with those two things, we've made some kind of cool improvements to those two minor, relatively minor features. Um, but I think it's important to put a focus on those the feel of these things, because it matters. It matters more than you think it would. So, and we don't want to skip that type of stuff too much. So, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about with those two things. It was a real quick episode this week, but that's because I've been doing some prep work for next time, with an exciting announcement coming. I think what I'm going to try to do is start streaming while I work on the game, and then doing kind of not prep, recap videos every week. So uh, that way, if you want, you can just watch in real time as we work on stuff, and then each week I'll recap the progress we made in videos. Um, that's going to come in the next couple of weeks. I'll let you know what type of, when that's happening. The other thing is, next episode we're going to be talking about the pitch for the idea of the game, and just strategies for pitching in general, for designers that, the pitch is a super critical part of your experience as being a designer, and how you take your ideas from your head and demonstrate that they're good ideas to other people who might be skeptical. And those people might be different audiences, from a business perspective, from a player's perspective. You have to know who you're talking to, and that will influence what you say. So, super excited for that. And I will catch you guys later. Have a great weekend.